Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Republican National Convention. I'm Ravi Kapoor. We're joined by Shalli Kumar out of Chicago, who is the chair of the Republican Hindu Coalition. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me here.
So, you've made a bit of news. You have been identified as the top donor in the Indian American community to Donald Trump. Talk about why you decided to endorse Trump to this degree.
What's that? Well, he fits perfectly our 4F principles. That is free enterprise, fiscal discipline, as well as firm family values, and the last one, which is probably the most important one in today's environment, that is a firm stand against extremist terrorism.
Is that the number one agenda on your mind?
I wouldn't say exactly the number one, but it's up there at the top. Of course, the number one agenda is the economy and the fiscal deficit, which we have, which has doubled in the last 7.5 years. It took us 240 years to accumulate the 9 trillion in debt, and then in the next 7.5 years we go and we accumulate another 10 trillion. So, almost approaching 20 trillion of debt. That is probably the bigger threat to national security than this extremist violence. But both are quite a bit there. It seems like the Islamic extremist terrorists are really out there. Just almost every week there is some international terror attack.
Let's talk about your stance on all of these issues. Namely, Donald Trump has obviously promoted a stronger border defense, and that has caused a lot of women and minorities to take umbrage with his stance, particularly towards Hispanics. What is to say that he doesn't treat Indian Americans or anyone else of color differently? I mean, how have you been persuaded that Trump will treat all of us equally?
I don't think his stance has anything to do with race or color or religion or anything like this. His stance is to secure the borders of the country. Unfortunately, in a way, United States, U.S., America has a very big border with Mexico. You look at India's map. India is very fortunate that you are covered from all different sides, ocean on both sides, Himalayas on the top. So you have a natural protection, except from some parts of Punjab and Afghanistan, through which India had been attacked in ways. So his concern is national security, that you have such a big border, and Al-Qaeda and ISIS have openly declared that they will send terrorists through these borders. And it's only natural for a president of the United States whose first responsibility is to protect the lives of the citizens of the United States, to take a stance, do whatever is necessary to protect the lives of the citizens.
I guess the crux of the question is, can he do it in a different way? Perhaps his approach, his tone in immigration reform. Is that something that should be considered? He is the leader of the free world if he becomes president. Do you feel as if his approach is a little heavy-handed in order to get a wide swath of Americans to vote for him?
I don't think so. I think it's time that somebody calls the elephant in the room. That there is a problem, then a problem should be addressed. And his tone is sometimes is distorted as to what the media reports, as to the statements he has made. It's a very natural statement. When he talked about banning Muslims, what he clarified very quickly, and what he meant was, if the national security agencies cannot tell when the refugees come from Syria here that they are not able to vet them properly to figure out that some of them could be terrorists. So until that time, until national security agencies tell for sure that a 99% or 99.999% that we are not having terrorists coming into the country, they should be banned.
Now, why did you get involved in politics at this stage in your career? You've been a very successful businessman. Why do you start the Republican Hindu Coalition now, and why is Trump your candidate?
Well, first of all, tell you a little bit about my background. In a way, politics, whether you call politics or policy, is in my blood. I'm born to a freedom fighter, and so in my student days, I was quite a bit involved. I was the first one to challenge the corruption in India back in 50s. And before Baba Ramdev, now he's a favorite of mine because he took it up now. And so since I came to the United States, I've been politically active. I was a Democrat first. I was recruited by none other than President Reagan, when he was a candidate Reagan, to become a Republican in 1979. Since that time, I got involved in politics and policy. For 6 years, I was on President Reagan's Small Business Advisory Council, and we learned a lot about Reaganomics, supply-side economics. Milton Friedman and Jack Kemp was our guru, and Don Cotton, who was his Midwest campaign manager. 86, I decided to sort of get out of politics because it was being followed up by Bush at that time, who had called Reagan theory as voodoo economics in 1980. So I really never had too much faith in Bush. So I decided to concentrate on business. I got out of that. In 2010, I was approached by the Haley campaign for supporting Nikki Haley, and that brought me back into politics. So it's about 6 years I'm back into politics, and worked on some major issues during this period. On legislation, cutting off foreign aid to Pakistan. We were able to cut it in half. Then we were just recently able to persuade Congress to stop the sale of F-16s to Pakistan. Then S-744 bill, which the Democrats were pushing hard to pass, which would have affected almost 500,000 IT workers from India, would have hurt India's economy by $30 billion. Also, U.S. economy in a major way, because U.S. Chamber of Commerce was against it, because you could not operate American economy without these IT professionals from India at this point in time. So we worked very heavily with the legislative agenda on the Hill. And then recently, a friend of mine, Nick Muzzin, who is now the executive director of Republican Hindu Coalition, he persuaded me to go to the annual convention of Republican Jewish Coalition last year in March. And it was unbelievable what I saw. There are 5 million Jewish Americans in the country, and the impact they have, the influence they have over national policy with respect to conservative values. Not only that, but also with relations with Israel is phenomenal. And we are 4 million, roughly 4 million Hindu Americans, not just from India, but from surrounding countries, from Africa as well, Caribbeans. So we have 4 million Hindu Americans. And I got persuaded by a long-term friend of mine, Gingrich, Speaker Gingrich, and Chairman Pete Sessions, and others, and the leaders of the party to start the Republican Hindu Coalition. So I started that in November last year, and it's grown very well. It's doing very well in terms of membership growth and what we are able to do. It was launched in November with the blessing of not only, of course, Speaker Newt Gingrich and Chairman Pete Sessions, Chairman Ed Royce, and we had Majority Leader Mitch McConnell presiding over the inauguration of the Republican Hindu Coalition. We had 5 other senators, Rob Portman, Kelly Ayotte from New Hampshire, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, joined the celebration. We did that on Diwali function as well at the same time. So that's how I'm involved in politics, or policy.
And so far, you and your wife are going to contribute about $900,000 to the Trump effort to get elected. My final question for you is, at this juncture, there are a lot of Hindus and a lot of Indian Americans that vote Democratic. Do you think Trump is a candidate that will start to peel away some of the Democratic sway that most of these candidates have over the Indian American community?
A couple of corrections. One is just numbers-wise is fine. 900,000 actually to the Republican presidential effort. Me and my family and my wife, we have contributed $1.1 million so far. Second is your question deals with feeling of the American or Hindu Americans, Indian Americans in general, in support of the Republican candidates and particularly candidate for President Donald Trump. That there's a lot of work to be done, but it's our job to educate. When we educate Hindu Americans, Indian Americans on the policies of Democrats, and I've experienced that in 2012 in District 8 in Illinois itself, we were able to convert 10,000 regularly voting Democrats, Indian American Democrats. We switched 10,000 in District 8 in Illinois, Schaumburg District, to Republicans. So it can be done. It's a question of education. If we look at the policies again, 4 F's, what we say, you compare to Hillary, vis-a-vis a lot of our people are concerned about Pakistan. When we see where is Hillary's money coming from? Putin declared Hillary as a terrorist when she gathered $500,000 from known supporters of terrorists that infiltrate Pakistan all the time. When people come to know about those facts, Hindu Americans will switch to Trump.
We're being asked to wrap up here, but finally, is Trump the candidate because he is a Republican or because he's a unique candidate that appeals to you?
Unique Republican. That's how I will describe it. Non-politician Republican.
Shalli Kumar with the Hindu Republican Coalition, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.